What's going on, y'all? Hope you're having a good day. I want to talk about two things today, and then I'll answer questions at the end for about 35 minutes or so. First, I want to talk about the COVID-19 situation. Of course, I have dozens of videos. People have talked about it for hundreds of days now, but I want to talk about a few good points of it. Of course, nothing of this nature is good, but there are silver linings that the media never really talks about, and then we're going to go over some other stuff that just isn't adding up even to their own accords. On that note, and then I want to talk about Nick Cannon. We talked about it the other day. If you want to see that live stream again, it's on YouTube. And I just want to talk about he apologized for anti-Semitism, and I kind of want to break that down and get really real about it. So I hope you guys appreciate it. I apologize to the people who tried to watch on YouTube. I tried for 30 minutes to launch this on YouTube, but YouTube was glitching and it wouldn't allow me to launch. So I'll take this live stream after and put it onto YouTube. So if you want to watch it on Facebook later and it's not here on Facebook, check YouTube or my BitChute channel. And also I wanted to say, as people are coming in, there's accounts that pretend to be me on Facebook every single day. Like literally they get deleted and removed, and there's a lot of scammers on Facebook who say, I'm Anomaly, I'm giving you a free prize or something. It's not me. I don't use a personal page named Anomaly. So if you see that, I get messages every day saying Anomaly. It happens literally every day. So the good news about that is the reason it happens is because we're one of the bigger pages on Facebook. So that's I appreciate the reason why it's happening. But overall, just be on the lookout for that. And those are the two stories of the day. I got about 10, 15 articles here in front of me. Should be a good one. I'm gonna get hyped up, drink some coffee. Someone said glitching or sabotaging. I don't know. I'm just gonna guess it's a glitch. YouTube. The problem with a lot of these organizations as well, and this is what we get into. I don't care what ethnicity you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what politically you are. It doesn't really matter to me. However, if you stop judging people by the content of character like you're seeing in major corporations, if you stop focusing on what's important, which is safety, security, hard work, good workers of any ethnicity, your product begins to deteriorate. For instance, Twitter got sabotaged recently and everybody got hacked. YouTube malfunctions all the time. I'm not saying that's why, but at a certain point, what are these people doing? They'll pay billions of dollars for diversity training. They'll pay billions of dollars to people to come in and sit in these roundtable circles and have echo chamber discussions about how woke they are and how bad NFL team names are. And when you spend all your energy on things that don't matter, you ignore the Libyan slave trade, you ignore the Syrian refugee crisis, you ignore, the human tragedies going on in China, and you complain about one of the more free countries in this world, at least over the last 20 years before COVID, then you get a product that doesn't work. I'm not saying that's why the YouTube stream wasn't working, but you're going to see the decline of a lot of industries, of a lot of companies, because they don't focus on the truth. They don't focus on, what matters. They don't look at people as individuals and say, hey, you know what? If there's more Indians or Asians or Hispanics or whatever it is, I'm just going to hire the best people. It doesn't matter. They don't look at it like that. They look at it and say, we need this, we need that. And you end up getting what you get at Harvard. You could look at the statistics, which is 90% or 99% of the people there agree with each other politically. They're all left wing. There's like 1% of conservatives. They're afraid to speak out. And it becomes this hive mind of like, you're never enough. You're never weak enough. You're never victimized enough. You did this. You called me the wrong thing. You said the wrong word. It's a horrible way to run the country. It's a horrible way to run a company. So I'm not surprised that YouTube is glitching and all these other websites. They're not prioritizing, it's like they'll probably pick a coder that's not that good because they like his sexuality or something. It's like, if it's a gay coder, hire him because he's fantastic. I have friends that are gay dancers. They don't get hired because they're gay. They're just really good at dancing. So they don't check the sexuality before they hire. That shouldn't be what we do in this country. But whatever. I don't want to get on a whole rant. We'll do some shout outs and we'll get into it. Someone said, what about the human trafficking in Epstein Island visit and trials? We'll talk about it at the end. I'll answer some questions, but that's an ongoing thing as well. So feel free to bring that up again at the end, and I will answer stuff about that. And I have some interesting stuff about that. If you go to my Instagram at DreamRare, or you go to my Twitter at Legendary Energy, you can see Geraldo Rivera basically saying, defending Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she should have got out on bail. Very interesting stuff, isn't it, folks? All right, let me get my coffee in. I don't know exactly what you meant by that, Art, but okay. Fred? Tracy, what's going on? God bless you. Suan, thank you for being here. Molly, I appreciate you. Julie, Thank you guys so much. You're so kind, and I appreciate that. Hold on. I got an itch. I got to get an itch off camera. Sorry. I'm a human being, and I'm not on television, so I can do that type of stuff. What's up, Bob? Kelly from Iowa, God bless you. Aubrey from Seattle, stay safe out there. Those progressives, they don't calm down, do they? It's like Portland, they're like burning things down. I don't justify the riots, I don't justify lootings, I obviously don't justify burnings. Any crimes like that, I completely disagree with, but with the looters, I'm not justifying looting. I think it's a horrible thing, but I feel like the looters, a lot of them were just trying to get a TV and get some money. I'm not saying it's okay, I'm not saying it's justified, but it's like these Portland, like liberal, far left Marxists, they never stop. It's like these guys are like, yo, I just want a TV. You got the progressives in Portland, they're like, burn it all down, it's like, guys, calm down. What are you doing? Just go, just chill out. You know what I'm saying? Hang out, think of ways to build, don't destroy. I don't know what they're doing out there in Portland and Seattle, but God bless you guys. Someone said, have you been following the COVID deaths on worldometers.info? I have, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. Hold on, all right, so let's get it started. So obviously COVID-19 is not good. The shutdown is not good. Any disease or illness is obviously not a good thing. So I'm not here to glorify that. It's terrible. But at the same time, when you're talking about things like that, you're supposed to, if you're an authority, a news source, a politician who's trying to lead people with positivity, you should point out the good aspects of it and show people strength and say, we're going to defeat this. We're going to win. We're going to do the best that we can with a hard situation. What they do is they spread fear on television. They spread hate. They spread lies. They get political and scream, science, science, follow the science, but they don't even follow their own science. They literally think just screaming science. They're like, I'm Gavin Newsom, science. And then everyone's like, science, science. And it's like, just because you say the word science doesn't mean you follow the science. It's so weird to see that happen. They're like, you don't get the science. Just because you said the word doesn't mean you're following it. But whatever. Point I'm getting to is you shouldn't spread fear. Scientifically, the reason is because fear lowers your immune system. Having stress is really, really bad for you. So the fact that they keep doing that just shows that they don't really care about you. And I'm going to play this study real quick. There's an ad in front of it. But there was a study recently that showed that 75% of people are becoming overweight from the pandemic. And we're going to play it, listen to what they say, and get into why that's not a good idea. And that's obvious science, but I don't just scream, science! Game over, guys. I yelled science, I won. But here's the study. It's obviously not conclusive. They studied a few thousand people, but let's hear it. It was on Fox News. And not regular Fox News, WZDX News, which is a local Fox News station to be specific here.
Are gaining weight during the pandemic. A survey by One Poll on behalf of Nutrisystem found that 76% of respondents gained up to 16 pounds during the pandemic. Almost 70% of people say they're snacking out of boredom, and 40% of people say inconsistent eating schedules have led to their weight gain. We spoke to a counselor about these numbers, and she says stress and major changes can impact our health.
When we are in stressful situations throughout our life, but definitely in this time, we can increase what we intake simply because it makes us feel a little bit better.
Okay, so that's just science. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm showing you the science and the data behind a majority of people in this country are overeating. They're overeating out of boredom. They're overeating because they lost their schedule, their job, their ability to go to a gym. I mean, the reasons are obvious. And then you have a doctor here that says, in times when you're fearful and stressed out, you can eat a lot. So that's a multiple bad thing. Fear and stress lowers your immune system, destroys your body internally. Ulcers and such can happen from them. And then you're eating on top of that, and we already know obesity, diabetes, a lot of the preventable kinds. Of course, some kinds are genetic and some things you can't help. In a majority of the cases in America, it is preventable. And we know that if you are these things, you have a higher chance of dying or being really ill from COVID-19. So they're not doing the math. They're not doing the science of how many millions of people we could save, how many lives could be saved if we had better schedules in this stuff. They're still promoting all this stuff on television. They don't care how much you have Gushers. Gushers is like, we stand behind Black Lives Matter. That's very nice of you, Gushers, but you're giving sugar to the kids. I guarantee you your products are causing more diabetes than your, Marxist protest will ever save. But whatever, it's like McDonald's is like, Black trans lives matter. I agree with you, McDonald's, they do matter. However, your product, once again, has probably hurt and harmed more people than police have unarmed people ever, if you want to compare numbers. But we won't get into that either. But the point I'm trying to get to is, before I get into the silver lining, is this idea that there's no negative health consequences from a lockdown or a quarantine or all this stuff is such a false talking point, and it's such a lie. And I don't understand, there's people on the left and the right who believe this, where we can talk about all the positive aspects of a lockdown and masks. I'm not above it. I'm not going to say there's zero things that they do. Of course, scientifically, lockdowns and masks, but you have to understand when the virus came, how widespread it is, can you stop it, is it temporary? You have to put all these things into perspective. You can't just wing it and, I destroyed millions of businesses and, 75% of the population's overeating. Oh, I won. It's like, no, you didn't. You go watch my last video. Compared to Sweden, they say Sweden's doing terrible because they didn't do a hard lockdown or do a mask mandate. They're not. They're doing 1.3 times as bad as America. And if you compare them to Belgium, the UK, France, and I believe Spain, who all had harder lockdowns, they have a higher death rate. In some cases, they're 2 times as bad as Sweden. So you compare it to the US and say they're 1 time. What about the countries that are 2 times as bad per capita as Sweden, and they did a lockdown? Lockdowns are not necessarily healthy. And I'm going to say this too, because I did a whole debate with somebody on YouTube. He's a pretty big YouTuber and a friend of mine. Honestly, we're not best friends, but I went out to eat with him. I think he's a nice guy. His name's Nuance Bro, and he was, showing me the data of all these excess deaths. And I looked at the New York Times chart, and this is how they manipulate you with data. They showed Germany, France, UK. They showed all these countries, but none of them were consistent. They showed 5 years for this country, 1 year for this country, 2 years for this country, 10 years for this country. And I said to him, I'm like, how can you compare all these countries, but you're cherry picking 1 year or 10 years? That seems like a setup. And he's like, no, it's not. That's totally normal. And then for the United States, the New York Times did not put the United States. They put just New York. I'm like, why would they do countries and then just one city? It's because New York was astronomically bad. And compared to the rest of the country, there was no crazy anomalies on the chart, for lack of a better word. So they cherry pick data, and then they skew the years, and then they pick cities instead of countries. It's so easy to do that. But the point I'm getting to is, he was trying to laugh at me in the debate and say, it's crazy that Anomaly thinks that lockdowns could be bad for your health and some of the excess deaths could be from lockdowns. There's data to back up what I said if you watch my last video. They did a study in the UK at the beginning of the pandemic and found that they had an excess deaths in the UK of 8,000 people who died in their home, more than normal, in the UK, in their houses. Only 20% of them had COVID-19. 80% of them, also known as 4 out of 5, were unrelated. So there's data to back up 4 out of 5 people dying inside weren't related to COVID-19. And they try to laugh at me and mock me in a debate and say lockdowns are not healthy for people. Overeating, obesity, diabetes, lack of exercise, lack of social cohesion, afraid to go, massive spikes of fear, afraid to go to the hospital if you have a problem because you don't want to catch COVID-19. Probably more hospital mistakes. You look at the list of how many people die from hospital mistakes in this country, it's astronomical, higher than you'd ever imagine. There's people telling me on YouTube, Anomaly, I'm getting depressed. I'm like, I understand why, don't be, but yeah, that's going to add to your life expectancy and lower it. And also, if your elderly, family member goes to the hospital, this is what I'm hearing now, even if they don't have COVID-19, they're not allowing you to visit them in some cases, even if they don't have COVID-19, depending on the hospital. So you're not even allowed to monitor to see if they're doing the right thing when you know tens of thousands of people die every year from hospital mistakes. So it's not this crazy, let's laugh at Anomaly because he thinks lockdowns are unhealthy. No, they definitely are unhealthy. It's debatable whether they saved or ruined more lives, but there's more than enough data and information to say that. And why am I talking about this? Besides, why wouldn't I be? Let's look at the data and the facts and these organizations that scream science. Close the gym, science. I'm the World Health Organization, science. Let's look at what they said. Earlier this year, they said there was around a 3.4 or 3.2. I can't remember the number off the top, but it's one of those two. Guarantee it. Take it to the bank. 3.4 death rate for the virus. It's not nearly as big as that, and we know that, but they never once I said there's good news, it's never like, hey, this virus is not as bad as we thought it was. You know, kids are not being astronomically murdered by this virus. It's just not true. You look at the numbers of kids, it's so close to zero, it's outrageous. And even if you go under 64, these numbers are not astronomical. It's so wildly close to zero. And from 54 down to like 18 and 24, the lower you get, it just becomes like a 0.00. It's such a small number. It's absolutely insane. So it's not this crazy thing. They don't want to tell people. They don't want to send people back to school. And the more we learn about this stuff, the more we realize we had the death rate wrong. And I knew we had the death rate wrong because they were calculating the death rate. How do you get the mortality rate of the virus? You take and divide the number of total cases by the people who died, and then you come up with a percentage point there. But at the beginning, when they said it was a 3.4, they weren't testing anyone. So if 10 million people worldwide have COVID, I'm just giving you a rough idea. If 10 million people have it, but you're only testing 1 million people, that means the numbers are going to be way skewed, and it's going to seem way scarier. I said that in March, and now it's July, and we're figuring this out. They don't apologize. They don't say they were wrong. All they do is smear people like myself who knew it before them. So let me just give you a sense, because someone asked if I was on worldometers.info. It's one of the places collecting the data. Here was the most deadly day in the United States. We had, according to their reports, I'd like to know how they're counting, but 2,748 deaths on April 21st. And that day where we had 2,748 deaths on April 21st, we had 26,238 cases. Right now, yesterday on July 16th, we had 73,388 cases. So almost times 3 what it was then. We're having more cases, shut down gyms, right? More cases is scary. More cases is not necessarily scary when the deaths are lower. Instead of 2,748 deaths like we had in April, you have 963, which is almost 3 to 4 times, 3 times lower. So higher deaths, 2 to 3 times higher deaths, 2 to 3 times lower, 2 to 3 times higher cases, 2 to 3 times lower deaths. That's good. The cases are going up, the deaths are going down, which means we're going to eventually reach herd immunity. We have better cures. You know, maybe we figured out how to treat the virus a little better. It could be one of 20 things, and these are debatable and discussable. But the point I'm getting to is it's not that bad that they're testing more. The more you test, the more you're going to find. And the fact that we're testing more, but the deaths are going down, that's not a bad thing. And according to their own science, they're so inconsistent. I don't understand, even if you're the biggest Trump hater and the biggest liberal and you voted for Obama, Jimmy Carter, and Hillary Clinton combined, how do you not understand that they're lying? Why are they lying? They told us for months, your gym is spreading coronavirus, your business is spreading coronavirus, your hair salon with 2 people in it spreading coronavirus. Everything you do spreading coronavirus, not airplanes with 100 people packed in it. Walmart, Amazon, those are okay. Those are essential because the government told you they're essential. Your hair salon with 5 people in it, we've deemed it's not essential. Even though I could destroy your whole life and your business and leave you broke and on government welfare, you're not essential, but United Airlines is, even though they pack 100, 200 people in an airplane, because we need flights. We just don't need your job. That's what they're saying. You're not important. You're not essential. Meanwhile, I had family members that were essential. Did their lives matter? You care so much about, oh my God, the virus is horrible, but you go work because, you work at a supermarket. You go work because you deliver packages. You work because we'll die if you don't work. So your life is expendable, not, they say essential, but they're basically saying you're expendable. This is terrible. You have to work. So my family members were encountering like thousands of people per month. And to be honest, every family member that I have that's an essential worker never even got COVID-19. They're completely fine. So isn't that a little interesting? But the point I'm getting to above this is they told us, according to their own theory, mass gatherings, businesses besides United Airlines and gas stations and Wawa or whatever, and Ralph's and Kroger, those are essential. But then they said don't mass gather. And then you had the Black Lives Matter protests who got in groups of thousands upon tens of thousands across the country, millions of people. They're saying it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest protest ever in modern history, with millions upon millions of people everywhere. And then they didn't stay consistent to what they just told you. If my hair salon or your hair salon, I don't have one, if your hair salon can't have 5 people in it, then why can they get in the streets for tens of thousands of people? Where was Dr. Fauci? Where was Gavin Newsom? Where was Governor Murphy? Where was Bill de Blasio? Where was Chris Cuomo? Did they scream at these people nonstop, tell them to get out, or did they justify it? Did CNN say get out of the street, or did they say it's a good thing? Did the scientists and the experts say, you know what, this is what we told you not to do, or did they bend over backwards and say, actually, we think it's good because we're so brainwashed and wicked and evil and sick in the mind, and we hate Trump and you so much that we're actually going to try to figure out some way to say that it's actually healthy for people. And that's what they did. I'm going to read 2 articles. This is from the Colorado Sun. It says, Black Lives Matter protests may have slowed overall spread of coronavirus in Denver and other cities, new study find. So now they're coming up with these phenomenal new studies that say, if you protest the anti-lockdown protest with 100 people, you're spreading the virus. If you're in a hair salon, you're spreading the virus. If you open your restaurant, you're spreading the virus. But if we get in the streets for our Marxist ideas and our far left socialist ideas, then it doesn't spread the virus. It actually slows the spread because everyone's afraid to go out. So you stay inside and block the virus in, and the tens of thousands of people burning things, looting, getting arrested, literally standing in groups like compact, half of them without masks. That's not spreading the virus. New York Times put out an article, Are Protests Dangerous? What experts say may depend on who's protesting what. Isn't that some new revolutionary science you've never heard of? Wow. Are protests dangerous? Well, what experts are saying is that it might depend on who's protesting what. So we're all equal, but we're not equal. We're, every ethnicity, every culture, every politics, we're all equal, except if you have the ideology, if you like family, the nuclear family, if you love God, if you're a Christian, and if you're a conservative who voted for Trump, then your protests are dangerous. But the experts are now saying, if you're an atheist, I'm just generalizing, but if you're an atheist, if you think the nuclear family should be divided and it's a threat to the matriarchy or patriarchy, and you're out, with these groups who are, organized what they call by trained Marxists, and you're protesting no matter what you're doing, it's not dangerous. So how is this? You read the New York Times article, it's disgusting. I don't understand how these people sleep at night. You can hate Donald Trump. You can not like me. I could really care less. However, if your theory, your scientific theory is too many people in an area is going to spread the virus, then you justify your own people and your own ideas for gathering in groups that are 1,000, 10,000 times as big. That's what a liar you are. That's what a wicked person you are. That's what a hypocrite you are. Are you serious? Are you joking me? Do you think you're fooling people? Are you fooling people? I don't know. How does that not red pill millions of people instantly? Are you that dishonest? I don't like a lot of stuff Trump does. A lot of stuff I do like what he does. A lot of things that a lot of people don't. I don't like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but if she says I'm going to drink water, I like water. I like water too. If she works on Ted Cruz to get rid of term limits, I'm okay with that. I can't live this life that you live of just pure wickedness where it's like our protests are good. And then you have these doctors and experts who are scrambling. You read the article and they say, I don't know why I feel this way. I feel conflicted because, it just doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to make sense because it's not true, because you're a liar, because you're a dishonest, horrible person who puts politics and your hate for conservatives in this country over literal science that you said 2 weeks ago. That's why you feel conflicted, because you're not an honest person. I don't know why I didn't like the anti-lockdown protest, but now I think it's okay, and I'm in the streets with Black Lives Matter, and I just can't figure out why I went to medical, because you're a liar. It doesn't matter how much medical school you went to if you're a liar. It doesn't matter how much training you have in virology if you're a wicked, evil person who will do the opposite of what's right and just and healthy and helpful just to achieve a political means. You're a horrible person, and you're going straight to hopefully therapy, hopefully, a friend's house that you could chat to and, have a revolution and be like, you know what? I don't like Trump. I don't like conservatives. I don't like Christians, whatever, but I can't lie about science. So I'm going to tell the truth about science, and then I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. That's okay. You can do that. But can you stop with this nonsense? They can't stop themselves. It's absolutely disgusting. Disgusting what they're doing. I don't know how they sleep with themselves. I don't know how people haven't picked up on this. If you're going to use the science of big groups are really bad for people and hair salons are really bad for people, how in the world are you bending over backwards and saying that Black Lives Matter protests are secretly really helping the situation? It's absolutely ridiculous. But once again, the silver lining is the cases are going up. The deaths are actually declining from where the peak was. this is, there is data in Sweden compared to other lockdown countries. It's not doing astronomically worse. It's actually doing better than 4 different countries. It's doing slightly worse than America. There are ways to figure out how to do this and not maybe open 100% of things, but move forward. There are ways, but unfortunately in this country, half of the political arena hates this country, hates you, hates me, hates the president, hates the truth, hates reality, hates science, screams science, but hates science, won't do science, does politics, says we don't make this political, but they make it political. We're just doing science, but they're not doing science, completely living an upside down world, and it's gotta be difficult for them to sleep with themselves. It's disgusting what they're doing. Please come back to reality. Please come back and do real science and just stop perverting every sense of everything, because you're going to end up in a world like Chaz where everything's burning. You have a bunch of degenerates pointing the finger. You're racist. You're racist. No, you're racist. It's like that's what you're going to turn this entire country into. But at a certain point, people aren't going to put up with it. It's absolutely ridiculous. On that note, let's move on to a little bit of a lighter story, but not really. But I'll try to make it lighter. So if you guys remember, I covered the Nick Cannon situation. He had a lot of choice words about, white people or unmelanated people, like, a little lighter skinned people such as myself. And, he had some choice words. He said something along the lines of like, your melanin lacks compassion and you come from the mountain of Caucasus. To be honest, I wasn't really that offended by it. I didn't agree with most of what he was saying, but in my opinion, I did a whole video on it. I think he has the right to say that, because when you just call someone a racist or an anti-Semite, what you're doing is instantly shutting down the discussion. It's a cheap way to pretend like you won. You're not debunking it. And there does need to be some conversations, in my opinions, about differences in ethnicities. Although it might be uncomfortable, I think we're doing a great disservice to all of ourselves if we don't do that, because between an Irishman and an African, there is a difference in sunlight and melanin, and I do think there are differences there. I don't think the differences he said are true. However, I'm not mad at him for starting that discussion, because I do actually think, sorry, someone called in. I do actually think that there's, it's just not right to shut any discussion with free speech, and I would like to have these hard, crazy discussions to try to find common ground. More importantly, I do want to say, just because you call someone a racist or an anti-Semite, it doesn't mean they stopped thinking that way. And a lot of these people who agree with Nick Cannon, you can't just yell a word and they all stop thinking that way. There's millions of people who agree with them. Even if it's wrong, we have to have discussions. We have to have debates. We can't shut down discussion, and just saying the word racist or anti-Semite or sexist or whatever, xenophobe, Islamophobe, it's a cheap way to just act like you have the moral high ground. So overall, you can't just legislate hate out of people's heart. You can't just legislate ideas out of people's heads. Censorship always backfires. Cancel culture always backfires. I know a lot of people don't like what he said, as I don't. But one of the craziest parts about what he said is what they were most mad about. They weren't most mad, apparently, they weren't most mad saying unmelanated people, lacked compassion. Those were probably the most offensive parts of what he said, but they're more mad at his anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, talking about how the Rothschilds have a lot of power. You think I'm joking. Here's a CBS clip that includes Nick Cannon apologizing. He's doing a little podcast with a rabbi, it looks like, or someone who's Orthodox. And, he's very sorry. And the ADL's Jonathan Greenblatt is there to tell him, you stop talking about your anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, Nick Cannon. Here's the clip. Listen up.
Went on to explain why he believed Jewish people rule the world.
When we talk about the 6 corporations, when we go as deep as the Rothschilds, centralized banking, the 13 families, the bloodlines that control everything even outside of America.
Those comments led Viacom CBS to cut ties with Cannon, writing Viacom CBS condemns bigotry of any kind, and we categorically denounce all forms of anti-Semitism. While we support ongoing education and dialogue in the fight against bigotry, we are deeply troubled that Nick has failed to acknowledge or apologize for perpetuating anti-Semitism. But late last night, Cannon did apologize for his comments via Twitter. They reinforce the worst stereotypes of a proud and magnificent people, and I feel ashamed of the uninformed and naive place that these words came from.
These tropes about Jewish people behind the scenes, manipulating events, are dangerous and wrong.
Jonathan Greenblatt is the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
The people who push out these prejudices or unknowingly repeat them need to understand their history, why they're so grotesque, and step forward, I think, and again, acknowledge the pain that they cause.
Anti-Semitic incidents are...
All right, so you can hear on CBS and Jonathan Greenblatt, who's the head of the Anti-Defamation League, who is a big proponent of censorship on social media. He pushes Facebook, YouTube, all these things to censor lots of people. They were more mad at the fact that he said the Rothschilds and a bunch of families control the world. That seems to be what really made him mad. And, you know, suggesting that there's Jewish people manipulating world events is where it crossed the line. I think a lot of conservatives were shocked. I noticed that I follow that normally won't talk about stuff like this. They were like, he's not apologizing to white people. He's not apologizing for saying that, you know, your lack of melanin has a lack of compassion. He's not apologizing for some of the most, you know, maybe controversial stuff he said, but the part about the Rothschilds really bothered Jonathan Greenblatt because, you know, it's really anti-Semitic, according to him, to suggest that, you know, Jewish people are manipulating world events. So my point is this is why I don't like censorship from the left and the right. In general, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're the Catholic Church, whether you're a Jewish rabbi, whatever, in my personal perspective, you're not above reproach, you're not above analysis, you're not above, criticism, if you want to call it that, or just speculation or compliments or anything. You know, I don't use the word anti-Christian to shut down people who call the Catholic popes pedophiles. Imagine if they said something about Catholic churches having power, the Pope having power, and I just said it's an anti-Catholic conspiracy theory to shut it down. I think that's wrong. In Islam, Christianity, Judaism, these are different ideologies that read different texts that have different feelings. So if we can't talk about it, regardless of maybe how offensive it is, and I know in certain religions there's rules and laws against that, you know, you're not allowed to question it. In the United States of America, that's not so, or at least it wasn't. So it's a little interesting on that note. Obviously, me personally, I disagree with a lot of what Nick said. However, the idea that Jonathan Greenblatt said, suggesting people are manipulating world events is like a really bad conspiracy theory. I just want to read a few articles. This might be controversial. This might be, really looked down upon. And I know, I'll get into it in a little bit. I guess I'll just read these articles real quick because on the left wing and the right wing, you have to understand there are Jewish people in this world that are doing fantastic. For instance, the left wing loves to hate Stephen Miller. Poor Stephen Miller. I mean, I'm not saying poor Stephen Miller. He's probably doing fine. But the left wing hates Stephen Miller. He's a Jewish guy. They call him a white nationalist. They call him a supremacist. They say he's racist. They won't leave this guy alone. And I don't even know that he does that much. I don't know. I think the left wing's hate for Stephen Miller is absolutely insane. But to just say they're anti-Semitic, that would shut down any criticism they had of Stephen Miller. Although I think they're completely over the top about their hate for Stephen Miller, I think it's more the fact that he aligns himself with Trump, and maybe they consider him a traitor, some left-wing Jewish people. I don't know. I think it's ridiculous that they hate him so much. Go to the right wing. The right wing really doesn't like George Soros, who himself is a Jewish person. And anytime you talk about George Soros, the media, all these organizations try to say, you're an anti-Semite. They call all sorts of right-wingers anti-Semitic just for simply talking about George Soros. So that's why that word really is not appealing to me, because it's been so exaggerated and it really stops discussion on both sides, whether it's Stephen Miller or Soros or anybody of any religion, ethnicity, whatever. So let me just read a few Forbes articles, because Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL said it's outlandish basically to suggest there's people manipulating world events. This is in Forbes magazine. So if you have a problem with me saying this, please don't get mad at me. I promise I'm not an anti-Semite. I joked on Twitter yesterday. I said I have a disproportionate amount of Jewish friends. It was a joke because people would say there's disproportionate amount. It was a joke. Our joke's allowed. I thought it was funny. I was like, because I do have a lot of Jewish friends, more than the average, in America. But whatever. Jokes aside, this is from Forbes. If you have a problem with it, go to them. Forbes flashback how George Soros broke the British pound and why hedge funds can't crack the euro. So George Soros is notorious for a lot of things. One of them is breaking the British pound, which by definition would be manipulating a global a country's economy. I'm sure, according to Jonathan Greenblatt, that's anti-Semitic. He's got to talk to Forbes about it. This one's in Business Insider. It says, here's how George Soros broke the Bank of Thailand. So George Soros is well known for, he's a big player on the world market, but he has manipulated multiple country economies and currencies, rather, into breaking them. And it's been covered by mainstream media. So if I was to say that, or someone else was to say that, Jonathan Greenblatt would probably say that's a crazy anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, but it's in Business Insider. It's a fact. So at what point does, a fact become hate speech? Some people say it's Islamophobic. Is it, or is it a fact? It's anti-Semitic. Is it? Maybe it is, but maybe it's a fact. Is it racist? Maybe, but maybe you just don't want to hear something else. Is it sexist to say that only women can have babies? Nowadays, they would say it is. They'd say, men can have babies too. I don't know. I'm not easily offended. Like, even with Nick Cannon's comments about my ethnicity, I just was not that offended. I don't know. I guess I hang out with people that just aren't snowflakes. We laugh about so much stuff, and that's just how I have so many Jewish friends, and they wouldn't be my friend if they were snowflakes. Like, some of my Jewish friends are the most savage, non-politically correct people, and it's hilarious. I don't know. We have a good time, and we're not self-conscious, and we know we're not hateful of each other, and it works out. But for some people, everything is hate speech. On that note as well, manipulating stuff. This is in New York Times, came out last week or this week. George Soros' foundation pours $220 million into a racial equality push. So he is constantly, adding to a lot of things, but you just can't say it. And I'll play that clip back real quick, the Nick Cannon one. It's like, out of everything he said, this was probably the least offensive thing that I heard out of everything. And he had more offensive things about Jewish people in his speech. This was not even one of the top 5 most offensive things he said, but this is what they're most mad about. It's kind of weird. And in order to debunk him, you really, like I said in my last live stream, I don't agree with a lot of what he said, but I don't just say, you're racist, I won. You're an anti-Semite, I won. You have to be able to intellectually dive into what he said and be like, you know what, I don't think, it's a strange, bizarre thing. Like, if you don't think the Rothschilds have a lot of power, I can't tell you how much power the Rothschilds have. I don't know. I would assume 99.9% of people in Israel have nothing to do with the Rothschilds, don't get any of the money, don't know anything about it, and don't get the big end of the stick there. It's not everyone's fault, but it's like, does that family have power? I don't know. If you go back through the history of banking, I would think they still have power. At a certain point, didn't they have power? Are we debating history now? Did they never have power? I don't know what point these people are trying to make, but it's like they just want to really shut you down if you say that. But I'll play the clip again, and then we'll talk about a few other things.
Went on to explain why he believed Jewish people rule the world.
From CBS News.
When we talk about the 6 corporations, when we talk
6 corporations,
the Rothschilds, centralized banking,
central banking,
the 13 families,
the 13 families,
the bloodlines that control everything, even outside of America.
And if you really listen to that, I don't know the full context. He wasn't blaming all Jewish people. He mentioned the Rothschilds as one Jewish family. And then he said bloodlines, corporations. He didn't just blame it. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of an exaggeration. In that, the rest of what he said was pretty questionable. But in that, I feel like it's strange. Another one was there's this meme of these bankers on top of like backs and stuff, and it's a big meme, and it says like, hey, when we stand up, the game's over. Ben Shapiro tweeted about it and was like, this is outrageously anti-Semitic. I can't believe people are... And it was strange because it never said anywhere on the meme that they were Jewish. And a lot of the guys didn't even look Jewish. They looked Italian. They could have been anything. They just looked white. So it's like Ben Shapiro was quick to call that an anti-Semitic meme, but no one said it was Jewish. It's like, it was like a guilty conscience. Like, don't say that. And it's like, bro, you're allowed to talk about bankers, especially without even mentioning ethnicity. It's like, dude, people have some of these free speech people are not really tolerant to certain things. It's bizarre, but I'll keep playing it.
Those comments led Viacom CBS to cut top Cannon. Writing, Viacom CBS condemns bigotry of any kind, and we categorically denounce all forms of anti-Semitism. While we support ongoing education and dialogue in the fight against bigotry, we are deeply troubled that Nick has failed to acknowledge or apologize for perpetuating anti-Semitism. But late last night, Cannon did apologize for his comments via Twitter. They reinforce the worst stereotypes of a proud and magnificent people.
I want to say this too. In Nick Cannon's apology, I'm just going to read it real quick, sorry. It says they reinforce the worst types of a proud and magnificent people. And, I think anyone can be proud and magnificent. I don't have a problem with it. But if you notice, if you're proud and magnificent as a Jewish person, you're allowed to do that. If you're black and proud, you're allowed to do that. You could print shirts that say, I'm black and proud. And you can say, I'm proud to be black. Can you think of a race or a skin color that's not allowed to be proud? So isn't it interesting that everyone on the planet is allowed to be proud and grateful for who they are? But there's a specific group of people that if you're proud, you're a supremacist. And if you're grateful for who you are, it's a really horrible thing that needs to be condemned. But when somebody bashes them, no one cares. And then they apologize to someone else when they said way less to them. Isn't that just a little bit odd to anybody or no? I've been talking about it for a year, but most conservatives, it goes right over their head. I find it a little bizarre. I'm about equality. It's like if you can be proud, you can be proud. If you can't be proud, you can't be proud. I'm not proud of my skin color. Out of everything I've done in my life, it's probably the least proud thing I am. I mean, I'm multiracial. I'm Italian, Puerto Rican, Polish. I'm grateful that my parents came from there, but I don't know that it's like my shining thing. I think it is what it is. But, it's just strange that everybody is so proud. I'll apologize because you're prideful. Well, what about the other group you mentioned, Nick? Are you going to? He doesn't have to apologize because that's part and parcel of the industry. If you criticize the other group that Nick said, you get a Disney deal, a Nike deal, they'll funnel you hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. But if you criticize someone else or just mention them, you're not going to last very long. And Nick figured that out. We'll play the clip and then move on.
I feel ashamed of the uninformed and naive place that these words came from.
These tropes about Jewish people behind the scenes, manipulating events.
So that was a quote from the head of the ADL. He said, this trope about Jewish people behind the scenes manipulating events. So according to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, suggesting any Jewish person manipulating events behind the scenes is a conspiracy theory. Despite the fact that Forbes, Business Insider, New York Times, they all covered it. There are people that are Jewish behind the scenes doing this stuff. It's not my opinion. It's not anti-Semitism. It's a literal fact that's widely covered, bragged about on multiple news platforms. But if you talk about it, they're going to destroy your life. They're going to shut you down. They're going to call you an anti-Semite. They're allowed to brag about it in their news articles, but if you mention it, they'll destroy your life. Nick figured that out very quickly. I want to read another one. This is from the Jerusalem Post, which is a specifically Jewish news outlet that I follow. Jerusalem Post said, this is from 2016, it said, U.S. Jews contribute to half of all donations of the Democratic Party. And they also mentioned that Jewish donors give 25% of the Republican National Convention's cash. That's a fact covered by Jerusalem Post. So if Jerusalem Post says it, it's a fact. If I say it, it's anti-Semitism. If I mention, who the biggest funders of both parties are, they're going to call you an anti-Semite, despite the facts of, you could find open documents of how much George Soros is contributing to the left, and you could find open documents of how much Sheldon Adelson is contributing to the right wing. It's a fact, but they don't want you to even compliment people. It's not allowed, and Nick found that out. And the most shocking thing about this is a lot of right-wingers, and I've known this for over a year, 2 years, a lot of right-wingers have such a big blind spot with what I'm talking about and how they use it to shut down speech. Either they're completely phony, a lot of these right-wingers, either they're completely delusional or misinformed, or they just have a blind spot. I would like to think they just have a blind spot, but the amount of people who lie about this stuff on the right wing just shows you why, free speech is not alive in this country, because both parties shut down on it. I'll give you an example of why. You had, maybe I should just read a quote since I don't want to misquote him, but I follow Tim Pool. He seems like a really nice guy. I've complimented him recently. I think he does good work, and he seems like a very, very nice guy. I'm going to read real quick his tweet from yesterday. He said, the left has emboldened these extremists. He was specifically talking about an article. It says, Charlemagne the God said Nick Cannon firing over anti-Semitic comments proves that Jewish people have the power. And Nick calls him an extremist for that. I don't like Charlemagne the God. He's annoying. I disagree with him most of the time. I think his politics suck. I think his social justice is cringeworthy. But even Tim Pool thinks that's an extreme comment to make. Nick bashes, a lot of white people. Nick says stuff about Jewish people. He apologizes not to white people. He apologizes to Jewish people. Says he's sorry, bow down. That's what the thing was mad for. And Charlemagne was simply just saying that. He's like, how does that prove that there's not a power structure there if you made him apologize? It's a totally fine comment to make, but that crosses the line for Mr. Free Speech Tim Pool. I'm pro-free speech, but you're an extremist. Why is he an extremist, Tim? That's extreme to you, Tim? No, Tim's either a liar or just not very bright. I don't know which one it is, but he should probably figure it out soon if he actually wants to help this country save freedom of speech, or else he's just another useful tool, gatekeeper, who's not saying much. Candace, who's my friend, said the same thing. She called out Charlemagne and said it's ridiculous that he would say that. It's really not. And I like Candace, and I appreciate her, and I think her and Tim do great work. But this is the hill I will stand on, because free speech is free speech, and calling things racist and anti-Semitic isn't the way to win. And also, it becomes an exaggeration. Nick apologized because that is one of the things that you just can't say. I could go through dozens of people who've been deleted off of YouTube, who've had books banned from Amazon, because in that realm, they've said something that was unpopular. In some cases, it was mean. In some cases, it was historically factual, and they don't want to talk about historical facts. They could talk about your history. I could talk about this history. How come we can't talk about the history of slavery? Do you ever wonder that? They say, white people created slavery, white people bad, everybody else are the victims. That's not historically accurate at all. If you go back to the beginning of it, even in most documented, it's not even debatable. There were multiple races. There's an Islamic slave trade still today. There was a black slave trade. There were black people who owned slaves, and also they sold their own out to begin the slave trade. That's, pretty well documented. There's other groups involved, and same with Jewish people. But if you write about that in a book, you'll probably get banned from Amazon. It is something they censor very heavily for. The left censors for it, the right censors for it, and both sides have a massive blind spot, or they're lying to you. I don't know which one it is, but overall, I disagree with a lot of what Nick said, but this idea that shutting down speech is going to help people, and the main reason I care about this, besides free speech, is at the end of that ADL clip, Jonathan Greenblatt said, anti-Semitism attacks are on the rise. You can't legislate hate out of people. You can't legislate free speech, not allow Nick Cannon and all these people to say it, and expect that makes other people look at you and be like, oh yeah, they don't have power because they're not allowed to say that. It just makes more people turn against you, and they're not allowed to speak about the Rothschilds, and they're not allowed to talk about George Soros, or they're not allowed to talk about factual statements that are published in Forbes and Business Insider and Jerusalem Post. When you're not allowed to say that, it doesn't make people like you more as a group. It doesn't make people think you're not doing that. It just makes more people hateful towards a lot of people. And I love Jewish people in America and all over the world. I think they deserve freedom, respect, and the peace of mind that people don't hate them. But this is not the way to achieve that means. It's the same with when they stop people from saying something in America about other groups. They say, you can't say that, it's Islamophobic, it's sexist, it's racist. It's like, some things are, most things aren't. Most things are just people exaggerating because they don't want to have these conversations. If you can't look at certain communities and realize they're doing worse off on average, you're never going to make them better. And that's what they do. They just keep making it worse and worse and worse and acting like it doesn't exist. And then they think they have the moral high ground to say that stuff. It doesn't help the black community when you don't analyze what's going on in the inner cities. Why is it getting bad? Is it the lack of fathers in the household? Is it is it historical reasons? Is it things that America did? Is it the mindset? Is it the culture? Is it something that we could... They don't want to say it. Everything's racist. So, okay, it's just going to keep declining. You're going to keep watching videos on Twitter of just insane fights, people kicking children in the head, throwing stuff at airports. And, every week you're going to read the crime blotter of Southside Chicago and be blown away that there's going to be more people killed than unarmed people killed by the police, nationwide. So you can't just shut down speech like that. It's not helpful. And it's the same with the anti-Semitism stuff. The right and the left just call everything anti-Semitism and won't allow discussion. And it's not going to help. It's not going to help Jewish people. It's not going to help this country. A lot of it is designed to stop you from criticizing people in powerful positions. There's people of all ethnicities and all cultures and all religions in situations in power. But if you criticize the Pope, It's not anti-Christian. In fact, I don't even like the Pope. So I don't care who criticizes the Pope. He's not my guy. However, imagine if people were to do that. And if you look at these corporations, if you look, like Nick Cannon said, at the 6 corporations that really have a lot of influence on the country, if you look at who's fundraising and donating to both parties, if you look at, a lot of these things, you could just go to the Wikipedia and find out who the person is and what ethnicity they are. And there is a trend. You could say it's anti-Semitism. I think of it as a compliment. In this country, in media, in entertainment, and banking, Jewish people are doing, on average, astronomically well. You could see it as a compliment. It's like Nigerians don't say it's anti-Nigerian when you say you're doing really well by average. They don't say, oh my God, don't say that. Why do you get what I'm saying? It's very suspicious, and it makes a lot of people, turn against you when they shouldn't normally. And I have followers from Israel. They're not getting any of this. So it's not like you're helping them, or you're not helping the deli owner, or you're not helping the average Jewish American. You're actually hurting them. You're actually turning people against them falsely because you won't allow criticism of some of the top people in the world. And if you look at the laws that they say are anti-Semitism, half of them say it's a conspiracy theory to suggest that they're doing well in banking or media, but you could just go to Wikipedia and see who owns what. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact if you look at ownership. For instance, I love Jewish people, but is it anti-Semitic to say that Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO of Facebook? No, that's a fact. Is it anti-Semitic to say Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook? No, that's a fact. Is it anti-Semitic to say Susan Wojcicki is the CEO of YouTube? It's a fact. These are not hateful messages. These are factual statements that are based in observable reality. So if you're not allowed to even question that, or anytime you get too close to it, they call both sides that word, it's a total trap. And the right wing finally started to understand that because they were weirded out by the fact that Nick didn't apologize for what he said about white people, because you don't have to apologize for what you said about white people, because that's status quo in the entertainment industry. That's what is allowed. That's what gets endorsed, sanctioned, promoted. That's okay. But you got to stay in those parameters, or else you start getting into territory that they're a little more upset about. That's just reality. I know a lot of right-wingers think that's hate speech, or think that's, a negative thing to say. It's just literally what's happening. And I don't think it's virtuous to just say like, oh, shut up, or I don't know. How they're handling it, it's not to agree with him. It's not to say what he said is right, but to just use that word and shut people down and not realize that that's a bigger thing that's going on. And you could read the rules. They're on the State Department website. Half of them are questionable. It's not free speech. It's certainly not opening discussion. And we absolutely need to have these tough conversations, because without them, we're acting like, and I'm going to end on this note, we're acting like everything is exactly the same. It's just simply never going to be true. It's never going to lead us to peace. It's never going to lead us to a better country. It's never going to lead us to a better world, because the truth doesn't care if you call the truth hate speech. The truth doesn't care if you call the truth racist. It doesn't care if you call it sexist. It doesn't care if you call it xenophobic or anti-Semitic or, Islamophobic or anti-Semitic. The truth doesn't care, because the truth doesn't move. The truth will always be the truth. The lies will have people fighting, but it's like a solid barrier that just buzzes forward. So if you don't want to figure it out this year, you'll figure it out in 2 years and 5 years. The truth doesn't care what you label it. So we have to stop labeling everything these things and just have these tough discussions, because we are different in many ways, and that's what makes the world go round. The mindset of the average Christian is not the mindset of the average Muslim, and that's okay, but there's overlaps, there's similarities, and there's differences. The mindset of the average Jewish American is very different from the mindset of the average Christian American. There's many similarities, but there's also differences. And there's also ethnic Jewish people that don't believe in God, or they don't believe in Judaism. And then there's people who do, and they have different ideologies. The more left-wing ones that don't really think like that. And then the Orthodox, that's a whole difference. It's okay. It's a beautiful thing, but we can't just pretend like it's all the same. It's not all the same. It's very different ways of thinking. And unless you get to that truth, you're never going to solve anything, because they just say, oh, it's Islamophobic. No, I have Islamic friends who live, in Saudi Arabia and, Dubai. They're great people, but they're not Christian, and they don't, have the ideology of what America has. They disagree with a lot, and that's great, but we figured it out. And it's like, he wants to live there, and America's not the place. So we have to have these conversations. We can't be shut down for talking about a Rothschild or Soros or Adelson or, statistics. That's not okay. And it doesn't help anybody. It's going to raise hate because it doesn't change the mind. You don't shut Nick Cannon down and millions of minds go, you know what? Yeah, New York Times said that's hate speech, so I don't think that way. You called Trump a racist? Oh, I don't feel that way anymore because you called him that. No one changes their mind because of that. You have to discuss. You have to debate. You have to hit people with something that's a little realer. For instance, Angela Stanton King went on Breakfast Club. I've talked about this, but she's conservative. The Breakfast Club's audience is mostly liberal, but she came in and she didn't call everything racist, sexist, xenophobic. She started saying why I don't agree with abortion, why I don't like this, why I don't like this, why I don't like this. Not just like, here's a word, I win. It doesn't work. That's not how you convince people. You do it by just spitting raw truth and putting those words aside, giving people the facts, giving them an argument that makes more sense than the one they believed before. That's how you win. And people don't get this, not just on the left, it's on the right too. They say, how dare him say that, him criticizing that was the problem. It was the problem. He didn't apologize for half of what he said. He apologized for the other half of what he said. And like I said, I can name dozens of books that have been banned from Amazon for the same thing. It's one of the main reasons for censorship, and you find it as well on other things. Someone mentioned Roseanne earlier. They said, well, if Roseanne lost her job, then shouldn't Nick Cannon? Neither of them should lose their job. I mean, if they want to drop them, it's whatever, but it's not like an eye for an eye. I get that. Like, well, if they get censored, we censor. No, that's how you lose free speech. We need to go back to what Noam Chomsky used to say. Noam Chomsky, who himself happens to be Jewish, is a virtuous man when it comes to free speech. I don't like his political theory, but he said, I don't care. People used to question Jewish stuff, and a lot of people that were following him would say, Noam, that's anti-Semitic. That's horrible. We have to charge them. We have to shut it down. And Noam Chomsky always used to say, I don't agree with what they said, obviously. However, I agree with their right to say it. I'm not going to want them to be charged. I don't want them, they need to be able to say this stuff. Everyone used to know this. But now you have this competition. The left shuts down 80% of the speech. The right wing defends it and then shuts down 20% of the speech and says they're helping you. You can't do that with free speech. Is not eye for an eye. It's not fire for fire. It's not censor for censor. That's what Shapiro thinks. That's what Charlie Kirk thinks. They all play that game. That's why you're going to lose the country. That's why you're going to lose free speech, because that's not how you do it. You need to go the other way. No more political correctness. No more censorship. If it's not that bad, it's not that bad. If Nick Cannon says something offensive to my melanin, I don't care. Who cares? You're a bad man, Nick Cannon. Everyone just stops thinking how Nick Cannon said, because I think no one does that. You have to debate why it's wrong, and he needs to get in a room with someone who thinks the opposite, because there's many people like Stefan Molyneux who think almost the exact opposite of what Nick Cannon says, and they should be able to talk about it. And maybe there's something there that we could stumble on. For instance, there are differences in melanin that go even deeper than just skin color. It's just true. With the sunlight, with certain products, not everything's exactly the same. There are different levels of what you can intake if you have a certain color of melanin. So why would I want to stop the discussion? Maybe there's something there, maybe there's nothing there. Maybe they're both wrong, maybe they both have something to say. That's how you get there. You don't just say, no, sorry, you can do it, you can. It's a mess. And that's the last point I want to leave on. People think I'm mean, people think I'm hateful. Rumors spread and say Anomaly's this, he hates these people, he's racist. No, I believe in free speech, and I know, similar to Daryl Davis, who combated the KKK as a black man, how you get through to somebody, even in the most extreme cases, are with an argument, are with, in many ways, love. I know people don't want to think that way, but you can't just put someone in a corner. They just get more radicalized. You have to combat it with love and truth and facts and realness. You can't just shut them down. You could try. It's only going to backfire. So next year when the ADL says, oh, hate crimes are up 50% or 20%, I know why. It's not just because people are becoming more hateful. Why are they becoming more hateful? Many reasons, but one of the main reasons is you won't accept any accountability, any self-responsibility, and anytime someone goes even remotely near the group you're trying to protect, you shut them down, ban their PayPal account, delete their book on Amazon, delete their YouTube channel, make them bow down and apologize, and you're turning more people against you. It's really simple, and it's never historically worked. Never. It's not going to work. So I'm not being mean. I'm trying to help out because I don't want people to get to a point where everyone hates each other. I mean, you're seeing it in the country now, burning down statues, burning down buildings, saying this, saying that. A lot of people feel these ways. You can't just shut them down. There's millions of people who want to burn statues down. There's millions of people who think I'm a lesser person because of my melanin. I don't agree with it, but if people feel that way, we got to talk about it. We got to get through it and then get to the point of, I'll give you an example. Nick Cannon, if he feels that way, I'm not mad at him. So you think because I have less melanin, I have less compassion. If that's how you feel, my question to him is, why do you live in probably a predominantly, white neighborhoods? You date white women. You're making millions of dollars in what is, at least at this point, a majority white country. Why do you want to do that to yourself if you really feel that way? I don't feel the way he feels, but I don't think he really feels the way he feels because none of his actions in life show that he did. He could live in an all-black neighborhood. He can date only black women. He dated Mariah Carey, lives in mostly white neighborhoods. I'm just curious on why he does that. I'm not mad at him. It's like, if you feel this way, why don't you go to these areas? He doesn't want to do that. So that's how you beat the argument. It's like, if you feel that way, let's figure out a solution for you and other people who feel that way, because I don't want you to feel like everyone hates you all the time, and I don't want you to look at me and think I'm lesser. I don't look at you and think you're lesser. I look at you and think I'm going to treat him as an individual, and if I notice patterns demographically, it is what it is, but I'm not going to treat you like the net sum. It's like if there's a majority of Asians do fantastic in school, it doesn't mean if I find one who doesn't, I'm going to say, oh, he does great in school. No, he doesn't. So I treat people on individuals, but noticing demographic patterns, in my opinion, is not offensive, whether it goes against me or not. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Stefan Molyneux said, he's made some offensive things towards me. It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I have such a high tolerance for this type of stuff. It's just not offensive. A lot of times offensive is like like a weakness. People are not I'm trying to think of the right word, but confident. They don't have a high self-esteem, so they try to shut it down and make themselves feel better. It's not going to work. If you have a high enough self-esteem, you're not going to be offended by this. And just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. Maybe you're offended by the truth, and maybe that's bad for you and everyone else, but you being offended by it doesn't, none of this makes sense to me. So that's my point. I hope you guys got it, and hopefully it doesn't get misconstrued. If it does, I don't really care, because almost no one's saying it on the left wing. Almost no one's saying it on the right wing, and it's the truth. And the funny thing about the truth is, it doesn't care. If you think, anomaly, just wait till 2021 to say that. We need to win an election. That's what I heard last year. I said what I'm saying now on podcast. They deleted the podcast, or they didn't want to air it. They didn't want to talk about it. It's too edgy. We don't want to say how the right wing's selling out free speech. You're not going to win the election because the country's not going to work out how you think it's going to work out. Did this year go how you planned? No, but this is a result of both parties being sold out. This is a result of phonies being phony. Phonies are phony. You're not going to get to where you thought you were going to get. If you thought Mitt Romney and John McCain were super conservative Trumpers, you figured out the hard way. And it's the same with, unfortunately, a lot of conservative influencers in the Republican Party. There's a lot of good minds. There's a lot of people who are learning, and that's just part of the game, But at the same time, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, I can't just only, talk about the left wing when the right wing is also censoring. That's my thoughts. God bless you guys. God bless your family. I'm going to answer a few comments, and then I'm going to take off. Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all. Someone said we need dialogue, not debate. I mean, similar things. Let's see. Someone said food shortages and power outages coming with the second wave. It's a possibility, but no one even cares. We just had the government shut down for 4 months. This is the crazy thing too. We just had the federal and the local government shut down our society for 4 months, guys. They're shutting down gyms, shutting down hair salons. You got millions of people going out of business, losing jobs, getting furloughed. You guys are out in the streets burning stuff off of one event that you don't even know, they told you to be mad about. I'm not saying it was great, but you're hurting your own people based off of one event. You're talking about Nick Cannon and his anti-Semitism for a week. Meanwhile, your own federal government's destroying your country from within. Who cares about that? I'm sorry, but besides me, how many conservatives do you know that put in the work that I did to show you what's actually happening with COVID-19? I could think of like none right off the bat. No, they're all useless. What are they doing? They tell you Ilhan Omar sucks, and then when push comes to shove in this country, when it's time to stand up for yourself and figure out what's going on, none of them are doing anything. They're all probably making more money than me, but not doing anything. And I don't need money. I'm doing great. But the point I'm getting to is when push comes to shove, here I am putting out real information. My last video on the CDC stuff is probably one of the best videos of the week. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying I'm here doing the important work. What are they doing? Talking about Nick Cannon being anti-Semitic, not doing any of the actual data about the country shutting us down. Yeah, there probably will be food shortages. I mean, you can't shut down a country for a year. Where are all these other advocates? They're saying nothing like they always do. I'm not trying to be upset. I'm just saying it's time. It's crunch time in America right now, and when you need people the most, they're not even there. But you're welcome, Eric. You're welcome, Susan. God bless you guys. Someone said people are trained to be offended. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. It's being taught. It's being indoctrinated. It's being put into people. I have like literally people. I have so many Jewish friends, it's not funny, but I'm sitting at lunch with my one buddy and he's like, I heard you were anti-Semitic. And I'm like, where'd you hear that? And he's like, off of what? They can't name it because I've never said anything. He's like, I know you're not anti-Semitic. We hang out all the time. I'm like, yeah, but why did someone say that? It's like these people just say these words and put them out. Bro, I'm like, you can't even find one video where I've said something negative about Israel, anything negative about Jewish people. It's always compliments or love. It's always just facts that people won't share, but it's like people will just say these things. They get offended so quickly. But the point I'm getting to is like I have friends that are Jewish and black, and they're not offended by everything, and it's so much more fun. Like my Jewish friend will say something about Jewish people or white people, or it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's like we know where we stand, and we just try to laugh at things. I don't understand the being offended, even at the Nick Cannon thing. Like, who cares? Like Louis Farrakhan said, white people are in labs. Who cares? Like that's where you're going to draw the line. I was not born in a lab. I was a real boy born. Who cares? I don't know. Life is so much more fun when you're not offended by anything, racially, religiously. Who cares? Like the whole world's not going to agree with you. The whole world's not going to be nice. The whole world's not going to like you. Who cares? It's just such a non-factor. And the right says, oh, the left wing is such snowflakes, and then they become snowflakes. It's like, you guys can't have a real discussion. You're too busy like, gotcha. It's like kindergarten. It's like kindergarten class with all these people. They're like grown, 50, 60-year-olds acting like 10-year-olds. It's pathetic. I don't have friends like that, because who wants a friend that's offended all the time? I'm offended today. It's like, well, then let's not hang out because you're really annoying. Like I like to play sports with my friends, go in the pool, have a joke, eat food, go out. I don't like to be offended all the time. That's not fun. No problem, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Christy, or whatever it was. So I said, need more people to stand up and fight this crazy. No one else is brave besides you. Listen, I'm not trying to be the last of the Mohegans, but, somebody's got to do it. Uh-oh. That's my COVID blocker, boys and girls. Somebody's got to do it. The moon is not going to find itself, guys. That's why I got this right here. The moon is not going to travel to itself, okay? We need brave astronauts like myself who can find the technology, because according to NASA's, brightest minds, We had the technology in 1969, excuse me. We had the technology and we lost it and we destroyed it, and it's a painful process to build back again. That's what Don Petit said, one of the oldest NASA active astronauts. So, you know, if they're not going to find the data, if they're not going to find the telemetry data, if they sold the tape at a garage sale and gave Denmark or Norway fake moon rocks, somebody's got to do the hard work. So I'm not only going to make videos, I'm eventually going to get to the moon, because it seems like, you know, our federal government can't do it. You know, 1969 was a good year, but since then, I guess technology's gone backwards. Everything else goes forwards in this world, but, you know, space technology goes backwards. We got Google supercomputers that are like 1,000,000 times as smart as a human, but, you know, if we only had that 1969 technology, we'd put men on the moon. We'll see what happens, but it's not looking promising. Someone said, so who censored Homeboy? I don't know what you're saying. Someone said the corruption goes deep on both sides. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, but there's not a lot of accurate honesty, unfortunately, but it's all good. Jack said, you helped me laugh, you helped me think. Well, I'm glad. Laughing is good. I was trying to think this morning because I was taking a shower and I was like, I want to find a podcast, but like some people who keep it real are just too serious and it's not that fun. So I try to keep it fun, but also I'm like, I need to listen to somebody funny, because sometimes I'm in the shower and it's like somebody's yelling at me and I'm like, oh, you know, this is not fun. I should just listen to music. Have I worn the NASA cap to buy coffee yet? I haven't yet. I've been kind of slacking. I don't know. It's a whole ordeal because I don't like bringing attention to myself, but at the same time, I do want to troll. So I'll get it done. Thank you, Debbie. God bless you. Thank you, Jackie. God bless. Thank you, Dale. With what I was talking about before, I think I've told it before, but I want to tell a little story because, you know, I was talking about the anti-Semitism word, and you heard the whole stream if you were here. But I had I got some friends in high places, but I had a woman that I talked to. She texted me and said one of her friends is like a big donor to Israel, and he gives like a lot of money to Israel. And he's talking to his other buddy. They're both Jewish. He's talking to him, and he starts calling him an anti-Semite. He starts accusing him of anti-Semitism. And he was like, I'm not anti-Semitic. I donate $1 million to Israel. How can I be anti-Semitic? And she said that like he texted her and was like, Anomaly was right about that. Like, even though he's Jewish, even though he literally donates $1 million to Israel, he still gets called an anti-Semite because that word just gets whapped around. And then he got mad at it. So it's like, as people are mad at what I'm saying, I got literal people that are like, yo, actually, I didn't even realize, but Anomaly's right, because like, I just got called that. It's like, yeah, it's not fun. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. How do we all combat the narrative with intellect and facts? Sheesh, I don't know. I mean, you can only do so much, but, you know, there's ways. I try to do my best, but, you know, sharing a good video with someone, an article, I don't know. It's a tough game. Not everybody will realize all the time. Dude, you remind me of Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, I've heard that. I guess we got a similar look, I guess. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate it. Chris, thank you. Elon is starting the real Terminator movie. Maybe. I don't know. I have good feelings about Elon, but maybe not. Maybe he's a terrible guy. I don't know. A lot of people don't like Elon. That's the only time when I post stuff and people are like, yo, Anomaly, don't trust him. I don't necessarily, I'm not like trusting him with my life, but I appreciate some of the work he does. And in general, I like to compliment people when they do the truth. If Elon says the truth, I'm not analyzing every other thing he's doing. I just like to, you know, I think it's good to like pat people on the back when they say the right thing. Cause then, I don't know, that's my vibe. Someone said when these people throw around these terms, they lose meaning at some point. They've all lost meaning. It's not even remotely debatable. Every word, there are differences between men and women. Pointing it out is not sexist. There are, you know, differences in demographics, neighborhoods. There's patterns. There's, you know, cultural differences in certain countries, it's okay to point out. It doesn't make you a racist or a xenophobe. And it's the same with religion. You know, if you criticize the Pope, you're not anti-Christian. If you criticize a Jewish person or tell a fact about them, it doesn't make you an anti-Semite. These words are massively overused. It's out of control. Thank you, Mandy Lynn. Any resources you could suggest to give or talk about with my 13-year-old? Sheesh. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really walked that walk, so I don't have like a good blueprint. But yeah, I don't really know. I guess, you know, I do the work that I can do, but I don't know. At that age, it's definitely tricky, depending what they're watching and doing in school. But yeah, I guess maybe just filter the content that you see and something that's like enough, like good enough for a 13-year-old. I don't know though. Sorry, I can't help you off the bat. Thank you, Greta. Appreciate you. Diane, thank you. I appreciate you. What we need to do is try to stop cancel culture. No, that's what I was saying earlier. I'm going to go in like 5 or 10 minutes, but it's impossible to stop cancel culture when both sides are in on it. The left is the worst, but then the right, they have a blind spot that's the size of Pluto, you know, which is not the biggest planet, but it's still a planet. It's still pretty big. All right, it might not even be a planet. I don't know. They say it's not a planet now. Who cares? It might not even be real. However, you get what I'm saying? The right has a massive blind spot. Massive, massive blind spot. I don't know if they're purposely doing it or it's like a mistake, but either way, it's long overdue. Someone said, when I was 13, I didn't care about politics. That's the really sad part, what they're doing to kids. They're over pushing politics onto kids. They shouldn't be caring about it. They're not allowing them to be kids. They're pushing victim mindset and guilt mindset. They're scaring them with the mask stuff. What they're doing to kids is like criminal. That's, to me, yeah, that's pretty much the big scoop. It's not all this other stuff, but it's... Someone said, how do you know when a politician is lying? It's when their lips are moving. That's funny. Someone said, Elon is bringing the next danger to our society, technology connected with the brain. Yeah, if you listen to his last podcast with Joe Rogan, his thought process is very interesting. I don't know. I'm not mad at him, but his thought process is like, there's going to be people who do what I'm doing. You know, as far as that, like it's not going to happen, or at least someone's not going to try to not do it. So his theory is like, I might as well do it and try to do it right. I'm not saying I like Elon fully, but I do trust him more than like Bill Gates and other people. Maybe that's my fault, but you know, his theory is like, it's going to happen, so I might as well do it right. And it could have a lot of pros. I mean, you know, it could stop diseases and stuff. I don't know. I'm not saying, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, but I hear what you're saying. It's creepy, but at a certain point, certain things are inevitable. To me, the shutdown is the big trap right now, but I hear you. It's definitely kind of creepy. Truth is getting out on TikTok. The kids are waking up. Yeah, I heard that. I saw a few TikToks. This one chick was like, I hated Donald Trump a week ago, but I realized he's getting rid of the world's worst people. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Someone said, I wonder how much of the COVID count is coming over the borders now. Interesting, very interesting question. In general, in this country, you know, you have millions of people. Anyone could get tested. It's an interesting thought. Never really thought about it. Do I think they will ever investigate the treatment protocol used in New York or COVID? Probably not. The difficulty, are you talking about when they put the elderly people in nursing homes? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, it was crazy, but they put the elderly with COVID-19 back into nursing homes or something. Yeah, it was a bad move, but I don't think they're ever going to get down to it. Someone said, what about the Wayfair stuff? I've talked about it already in 2 live streams, but guys, I think it's a massive trap. It's a massive waste of time. You can look into it, but where are you going with it? Do you have enough evidence? Do you have something really meaty there that could solve it? No, you're just going to talk about this for all year, accomplish nothing. No one's going to get busted. The real meat right now is Ghislaine Maxwell, guys. She's Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. She was denied bail. She's in jail. She's the one who could bring it all down. It's not you and your Wayfair theories. I'm not saying You could, if you don't want to hear what I'm saying, not only you're wrong, I'm going to think about it. Feel free to do whatever you want, but you're almost definitely not going to get to somewhere that you have conclusive evidence to do anything about it. And you have the world's most connected person under custody right now. That's the big scoop. That's the person who has enough evidence to bring it down. It's not this situation that people are talking about and nonstop talking about. And to a certain extent, people can't be accurate for whatever reason. Because there's a lot of stuff in the Wayfair thing. There's a lot of stuff that you can connect to be like, that's crazy. But then I'm reading 80% of it's real, 20% of it's fake. You got people, like, people can't stick to the truth. It's so weird. It's like people are still posting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's fake Twitter tweet that never happened still to this day. It's like people just, there's so much evidence there. There's so much going on, and people stick to things that are not going to lead to anywhere. You could think about it, but to me, it's a dead end. And there's no, if Ghislaine Maxwell was free, maybe there'd be more reason to do that. But you have the one person who could bring down the whole operation in custody. There's no reason to talk about this all year. You can, though, but to me, it's like, where are you going with it? Nowhere. Are you going to have enough evidence to do anything about it? And then you're not. You know, is it coincidental or suspicious? It is. However, you know, to me, it's a rabbit hole that leads to nothing. I think Ghislaine Maxwell is the whole kit and caboodle. There's no reason to do that. But whatever you want to do, I don't know. To me, it's such a waste of time and a trap. And then you're going to get branded as that, and they're going to call you a Wayfair gate, and then they're going to destroy your life and delete you and make fun of you. And at the end of the day, after all that, if you get deleted, if you get your life destroyed, if you get, you know, labeled that, are you going to ever, after all that, did you accomplish anything? Did you have the proof that brought the scandal down? Did you really get to the core of it? The answer is going to be no. So the risk reward is like, the risk is astronomical. The reward is virtually non-existent. That's my thoughts, but it is interesting to see. It's brought more people attention to a problem that is real, you know? So there's pros and cons, but there's no reason that I should talk about it. But has anyone seen Maxwell in custody? That's a good question. I think that's a question people aren't asking because they're worried about the other thing. So I haven't seen a picture of her in custody. Have you? That's definitely interesting. Someone said the Wayfair thing's waking people up. Like I said, there's pros and cons to everything. So the fact that everyone cares about it now, it's a good thing. I just think it needs to be redirected towards something that could really be beneficial. But, you know, everybody gets inspired in their own ways. I would just say be very careful about what you say and how you say it, because people get popped when you say something you can't prove or you go too far. For instance, I'm giving you guys a good heads up. You probably don't have to care about it because you don't have a platform. But if you have a platform or a voice or you're a celebrity, if you say something that you can prove, no one can do anything about it. If you start getting too loose and 80% of what you're saying is real and you're just railing out this stuff, it's super real, super real, super real, and then you get out of and then you start saying stuff that's like not real, they're going to take those parts, brand it as everything you've ever said, and then send you a cease and desist letter or say, don't. I've had multiple people, I know, not me, I've never had it, but they've gotten these sort of things, and the reason they had to do it was not because they were right and they were bowing down. They were wrong. So if you talk about, you know, it happened to Alex Jones, it happened to people like Roseanne. If you're saying the truth, it's fine. But once you you say something that's not real in the midst of everything else is real, they're going to take that one thing and destroy it, and you're going to have to bow down because you can't win an argument that you're wrong about. That's why it's so important to stick to the truth and stick to things that you could really prove, in my opinion. But someone said dude looks like a girl with a beard Snapchat filter on. That was pretty funny. Props on that one. The Constitution has been suspended in Oregon, said Joseph. That's unfortunate. That's my thing too. Like with some of these, I'm gonna leave. I gotta leave like right now. But with some of these movements, there's pros and cons. The pros are people are awoke to it. The cons are a lot of these people seem to think that Trump's going to do everything for them. Meanwhile, our whole country is being dismantled from within. We're having the Constitution being basically overwritten or just completely ignored. You're seeing even in states that are rural, you're losing the freedom to do stuff. And instead of tens of millions of people being like, hey, this is crazy, you got tens of millions of people who are waiting for Trump to do something about it. And he's not doing anything about it. He can't do anything about this. So that's kind of You know, that's the pro is like people are waking up and learning this stuff's real. That's fantastic. The con is people have played this game where they think Trump's going to save the whole world. He might do a lot, but at a certain point, you know, the people, the culture, you're going to have to take the country back. The culture is going to have to be taken back. We have to do it. We have to play our part. We can't just wait for him to do it. Someone said, I think you look cute, though. A guy said I look like a girl with a Snapchat filter, so I thought it was funny. I don't know. I'm not self-conscious, so I thought that was pretty funny. That's why I read it, but appreciate the compliments. Someone said he's going to drain the swamp. I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna repeat this, and I'm going to leave. He might drain the swamp. He might not. You know, hopefully he does. However, there's more swamp than he even realized. He's putting in people who are very swampy. There's things that you're going to have to do. Every corporation, or nearly every corporation, most of these media organizations, a lot of the country, institutions, half the country state-wise and government-wise, they're not going to listen to Trump no matter what he does, no matter what he says, no matter how much power Trump has. They're never going to listen. So I think people, I've said this before, they think it's all, like, they think it's a movie where Trump's going to arrest a bunch of people and instantly the whole world's going to be like butterflies and rainbows and everything's going to be perfect. I would love that. Trust me. That sounds like the day I'm waiting for too. However, it's almost definitely, no matter how much he does, it's not going to happen because our culture has been subverted. Our institutions have been subverted. Our media has been subverted. Our whole way of life is already filled with people who are not going to listen. They're going to shut down. They're not, even if he wins, all Republicans win, which is probably not going to happen. But if it does, it's not going to change. So it's not like a negative thing, but like people are like, Trump's going to drain the swamp and everything's going to, it's like, that's why the pros I just named, but the cons are like, there's going to have to be people who step up and enough people who step up and really make it change. Because this COVID stuff, it's not going away. This ideology and the fact that now there's justification for any business, any corporation, any airlines, the whole society can now shut down on a dime, turn off, destroy people's lives, and you can't do anything about it with the Constitution. So it's not going away. It's very, I won't even say dangerous, but it's very dangerous to say like, oh, Trump's going to drain the swamp and then everything's going to be great. Like, it's like, no, it's not. Unfortunately, that's not the reality of it. Even if he drains the swamp to the fullest extent that you think he is, there's still going to be 10, 15 years of work to do as far as to raise a generation and get our culture in a place where it's honest, accurate, fair. Trump does not have the power to face all of these companies. He'll try. He's doing his best, I think. But we have, like, it's a selfish, not that you have to do anything about it, but like we have, you know, we can't just like ride his back and be like, Trump's going to save our lives. Yeah. It's like that whole mindset. It's like, dude, are you watching what's happening? Where's everyone at their computer waiting for Trump to do it? He's not going to do it. So we have to either put up with it or realize that someone said if Biden wins, we'll be a socialist country. We're already a socialist country. What part of we're worse than most socialist countries. Life-wise, we're doing better, but as far as freedom-wise, we are socialists. If Biden wins, it's going to be a train wreck for sure. But what part of this is not socialist communist? You have the government seizing the means of production, making them do something else. You have the government shutting down certain corporations and letting certain ones swallow them alive. This is socialism. So this idea, it's like, with Trump, it's going to win, and Biden, no, if Biden wins, it's going to get 10 times worse probably. But this is socialism. This can't, it's hard to make this worse. I'm sure they could do it, but we have to realize a Trump win is not going to solve all the world's problems. It's going to save us a few years maybe from that. But like I said, they can do it from within. It's not like Trump has executive order over every academic institution, every television corporation. He actually has the opposite. He has virtually no power against these people. So we have to do that. You get what I'm saying? So it said church like the Jesus movement could change the culture. Yeah, there's a whole revolution, spiritual, political, religious, that's all in the works. But it's like, that's the final thought I'm going to leave on is like, we can't just wait and expect that it's not going to work like that. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative. It's not a, oh my God, we're done for. It's like a inspirational thing. It's like, okay, that's where we're at. We got to pull our part. We, you know, even on a small, talking to friends, talking to family, whatever it is. You don't have to go making your aunt mad at you or whatever, but overall, there's going to be some stuff that we have to do and, you know, be part of the change. We can't just, it's not going to happen from the top to the bottom. It's going to happen from the bottom to the top, most likely. And that goes with voting. That goes with not just Trump, but other Republicans, the ones that are phony and, you know, not really doing what they're supposed to do. They need to be replaced and, you know, and voted out and stuff like that. So you get it. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I did this one standing up. I like it. I feel like a karate ninja of sorts. But Manuel Lopez said, if Trump wins, they riot. If Trump doesn't win, they riot. That's kind of what I'm thinking, Manuel. Exactly. It's like there's things that are happening regardless whether he wins or loses. I think it's going to be profoundly worse if he loses. However, you nailed it. So you guys get it. God bless you guys. I appreciate you. I'll be back. And if you don't do anything, sign up for my free email list at stayintouchwithme.com if you want to. Least annoying email list ever because I barely use it because emails are annoying. So have a good one. I'll be back. And if you want to watch this tomorrow or later today, you can watch it here again until it disappears. And then you could go watch it on YouTube, which wouldn't let me stream today. Kind of glad, though. It worked out. Have a good one, guys. I'll be back tomorrow probably or the next day.